The 2016 United States John Brown's Fort Quarter carries a story that few could have anticipated when it was first struck. Minted as part of the the Beautiful State Quarter program, this coin was intended to honor the Harper's Ferry National Historical Park in West Virginia, capturing on its reverse the iconic structure tied to one of the most defining episodes of the pre-Civil War era. John Brown's Fort, the small firehouse where Brown and his men made their final stand during their ill-fated raid of 1859, was meant to symbolize the turbulent road to freedom, abolition, and ultimately the reshaping of the nation. For the United States Mint, it was another chapter in a series that sought to connect citizens with places of national heritage, a link between everyday pocket change and the weight of American history. But what happens when a coin designed to be part of a massive circulation run develops a flaw? What happens when something so common becomes, through accident, something precious? That is where the story takes its turn. At first glance, the coin looks like any other John Brown's Fort Quarter. The obverse still bears the familiar bust of George Washington, a design that has graced U.S. quarters for decades. The reverse shows the detailed engraving of the fort, capturing the lines of the stonework and the arched windows of the firehouse. Yet something was off, subtle enough that it might escape a hurried glance, but striking once noticed. The minting process had allowed an error to slip through, a small distortion, a striking anomaly that rendered the coin unlike its millions of counterparts. For those in the world of numismatics, this was not simply a mistake. It was an opportunity, a discovery, a key to rarity. The first whispers of the error came not from official channels, but from the hands of collectors and hobbyists. Imagine one such collector, sitting at a desk late at night, a magnifying glass in hand, examining roll after roll of quarters picked up from a local bank. The rhythmic pattern of disappointment sets in with each ordinary coin, until the moment the fort comes into view. At first it seems routine, another 2016 design, but then the faint irregularity calls for a second look. The lettering, perhaps misaligned. The strike, slightly doubled. The structure of the fort itself, softened in unexpected places. Fingers pause, the breath shortens. Could it be what it appears to be? That sudden rush of adrenaline overtakes the fatigue of routine. The collector holds history not only in the sense of the coin subject, but in the anomaly that marks it. Stories spread slowly at first. One collector confides in another, showing the piece with both pride and a trace of disbelief. The next begins scouring their own change, hunting for the same trait. Then forums light up with speculation, with images uploaded, side by side, of normal strikes and those with a peculiar error. The world of coin collecting thrives on such moments. When the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary through a quirk of machinery and chance, as time passes, value becomes the next chapter in the story. At first, it is difficult to place. What price do you assign to an object so new yet so clearly distinct? Some offer a few $100s, testing the waters, while others hold tight, sensing the potential. Weeks turn to months, and the rarity of the coin becomes undeniable. This is not a widespread flaw, not something that appears by the dozens in every handful of change. The error is scarce, slipping quietly into circulation and eluding the eyes of most. As recognition grows, so does competition. The value begins to climb, with auction sites hosting tense battles over each appearance. A coin that once exchanged hands for 25 cents now fetches thousands, then tens of thousands, each sale amplifying the realization of just how coveted this mistake has become. Collectors start whispering numbers like 40,000, then 60,000, and eventually more than 100,000, as the market corrects itself to the weight of rarity. By the time the story matures, these error-struck 2016 John Brown's Fort Quarters are trading hands in ranges between $50,000 and $120,000, depending on their condition and clarity of the error. The evolution of that price mirrors the emotions of those who discovered the coin early. For the collector who pulled one from circulation, the experience was life-altering. Imagine finding something in your pocket change and realizing later it could pay off a mortgage or fund a child's education. It was not merely about profit, but about validation, the thrill of having spotted before most others a treasure hiding in plain sight. And with each passing year, as supply remained frozen and rarity and demand grew, the significance of the error grew heavier. Yet what exactly gave this coin its allure? The answer lies in the very details of the minting error itself. For some specimens, the strike doubled faintly, creating a ghost-like shadow around the windows of the fort or along the inscriptions. For others, the alignment shifted, giving the impression of a slightly off-center image. In certain cases, the design looked faint or incomplete, as if the coin had resisted the force of the die. To the casual observer, it might look like wear or damage, but under magnification, the precision of the flaw becomes apparent. This was not post-mint tampering. This was born in the mint, under the machinery designed to churn out millions of coins with uniform perfection. That machinery, for a brief time, betrayed its mission, and in doing so, created treasures. Then comes the twist that adds another layer of suspense. As research unfolded, it became clear that not all mints were equally involved. Reports suggested that the Philadelphia Mint, tasked with a large share of the John Brown's Fort quarters, produced the highest concentration of these flawed pieces. Some collectors began to whisper that the dies themselves, perhaps worn prematurely or mishandled in setup, were at fault. But the unexpected revelation was that the error was not uniform. It manifested in slightly different ways across different coins, making each surviving example unique. Instead of a single, standardized error, there was a spectrum, a variety of misstrikes, misalignments, and doubling that made the hunt even more captivating. This twist transformed the error coin into not just one rarity, but a collection of rarities within the same category. A collector might find one with doubling on the inscriptions, another with a faint strike through the fort's windows, and still another slightly off-center. No two were precisely alike, and that individuality made them even more valuable to those who sought completeness. Suddenly, owning one error coin was not enough. The pursuit expanded into acquiring multiple variations, each telling a slightly different story of how the minting went awry in 2016 for numismatists. The error also carried symbolic weight. John Brown's fort itself is a monument to imperfection in human history, a failed raid that nonetheless ignited forces leading to monumental change. The coin, too, was intended to immortalize that place, and by carrying a flaw, it ironically embodied the idea that imperfection can hold extraordinary power. A perfect coin was worth 25 cents. An imperfect one carried a six-figure price tag. That irony only deepened its appeal as the years pass. The 2016 John Brown's Fort quarter error continues to hold fascination. Collectors still scour rolls of quarters, hoping against hope to uncover one, though the likelihood dwindles with each passing year as known examples settle into private collections. Auction houses continue to highlight them when they appear, the hammer falling on bids that reflect both rarity and passion. And for those who own one, it is not simply a coin. It is a piece of history layered twice over, once in the story of John Brown's stand, and once in the accidental stroke of imperfection that elevated its worth. The coin's journey from mint to mistake, from pocket change to $50,000 to $120,000 rarity, reveals much about the allure of numismatics itself. It is not only about history or art or metal. It is about chance, the delicate interplay between precision and error, and the human drive to find meaning and value in what others overlook. The 2016 John Brown's Fort quarter error teaches us that sometimes the most valuable treasures emerge not from perfection, but from the unexpected spaces where history, machinery, and human curiosity intersect. In 2008, when the United States Mint released the New Mexico quarter as part of the ambitious state quarter program, it was meant to be yet another celebration of a nation's rich history, geography, and culture. The program itself had already become one of the most successful coin initiatives in American history, captivating collectors and casual enthusiasts alike with its rotating designs. Each new release brought with it a moment of pride for the states featured, and New Mexico was no exception. Its design proudly depicted the outline of the state map with the Zia sun symbol, an emblem drawn from indigenous heritage, paired with the inscription, Land of Enchantment. At first glance, it seemed like just another beautifully crafted coin in the series, minted in both Denver and Philadelphia in the tens of millions. But somewhere along the production line, a subtle mistake found its way onto a small batch of these coins, an error that would later send ripples through the world of coin collecting. The error wasn't something that jumped out immediately to the naked eye. Unlike a glaring double strike or an off-center stamp that might catch even a casual observer's attention, this one was more elusive. It lurked beneath the polished surface of what looked like an ordinary quarter. For years, People spent these coins at grocery stores, vending machines, and gas stations without realizing that some of them carried a secret worth far more than 25 cents. It would take the careful eye of a devoted collector, someone used to scanning each detail, to finally recognize what had gone wrong. And when that recognition came, it sparked a wave of curiosity and obsession that would change the fate of this coin forever. For one collector, the discovery began almost accidentally. He had been going through a fresh roll of quarters from the bank, hunting for high-quality strikes to add to his collection. Most coins were examined and set aside quickly, too scratched, too worn, or simply too ordinary. But one quarter from New Mexico seemed just slightly off. Turning under the light, he noticed that the details around the state outline didn't seem to align quite the way they should. It was as if the borders were softened, misaligned by just enough to create a sense of distortion. At first, he thought it might just be a worn die, a common occurrence in mass minting. But the longer he looked, the more he realized this wasn't just wear and tear. Something had gone wrong during the minting process itself, leaving behind a physical clue to a mistake at the heart of the coin's creation. The moment was filled with uncertainty. Error coins are tricky. Sometimes what looks like an error is just damage after the fact, and collectors know that disappointment all too well. It's something about this piece kept drawing him back. He placed it next to other New Mexico quarters, comparing them side by side. The difference was undeniable. The state's outline, the hallmark of the design, carried a flaw that no other coin shared. Excitement began to stir. Could this be one of those rare, minting mistakes that transform an everyday coin into a prize worth chasing? The thought alone was enough to send his pulse racing. But excitement quickly gave way to a need for answers. If this really was an error, he needed to know its significance, and whether anyone else had ever found one like it. When word of the error began circulating in small collector circles, the reaction was mixed. Some dismissed it, arguing that it was simply an anomaly not worth attention. Others leaned forward, intrigued by the possibility that this might be one of those rare coins whose value skyrockets once the wider collecting community catches on. For our collector, this was a turning point. He had stumbled across something with potential, but potential is only as valuable as the story behind it. He began researching tirelessly, combing through mint reports, speaking with other collectors, even comparing digital scans of the coin to confirm the differences. Every new confirmation added to the suspense. Slowly, the idea began to solidify. This wasn't just a one-off mistake. It was a genuine mint error, and it could be the beginning of something extraordinary. As the error gained recognition, the value of the coin began its unpredictable climb. In the early days, a few examples traded hands quietly, fetching modest premiums of a few $100s. Collectors were cautious. After all, the market for error coins can be fickle, and not every mistake captures long-term interest. But as awareness grew, so did demand. The rarity of the error, combined with the iconic imagery of New Mexico's quarter, made it more than just another misprint. It became a symbol of how even a coin designed to honor history could itself become part of history by accident. Prices began to surge, creeping into the thousands as auctions revealed just how fiercely collectors were willing to compete for a piece of this story. What made the progression even more fascinating was the uneven nature of the climb. At times, values dipped as skeptics voiced their doubts, suggesting the error might not hold lasting appeal. Yet with each dip, the truly dedicated collectors swooped in, snatching up examples at discounted prices, convinced that the coin's rarity would ultimately prevail. They were right. Over time, the error coin began to cement itself as one of the most talked-about pieces of the state quarter program. Today, depending on its condition and visibility of the error, examples can command staggering prices, with some selling anywhere from $40,000 up to $110,000. It's a testament to how a simple mistake can create a seismic shift in perceived value, transforming pocket change into a treasure. The error itself carries an almost poetic weight. On the surface, the coin celebrates New Mexico's identity and history, yet the mistake distorts that very identity, leaving collectors to marvel at how human imperfection weaves itself into symbols meant to endure. The physical characteristics of the flaw, misaligned details, partial loss of definition, subtle inconsistencies in the strike, make each error coin slightly different, further enhancing their allure. No two seem exactly alike, and that uniqueness keeps collectors engaged, always on the hunt for the best example of the error. For some, The fascination lies in owning a tangible piece of the minting process gone wrong, a reminder that perfection is rare and mistakes can be far more valuable. But what keeps the story alive is the twist that emerged years after the first discovery. As researchers continued to investigate, they realized that the error wasn't confined to just one mint location or production run. Multiple dies across different production phases seemed to have contributed to variations of the same mistake, meaning that this error wasn't just a fluke, it was a pattern. That revelation transformed the narrative completely. Instead of being a single isolated accident, the 2008 New Mexico error quarter became a broader mystery. Why had the minting process allowed such a mistake to persist? How many examples were truly out there? And perhaps most importantly, how many might still be hiding in circulation, sitting unnoticed in someone's change jar or bankroll? This twist injected fresh life into the collecting frenzy. Collectors who had once assumed the ship had sailed rushed back into the hunt, scouring rolls of quarters and revisiting old collections in hopes of finding a hidden gem. Dealers saw demand skyrocket as new buyers entered the market, drawn by the romance of the chase. The coin story had evolved beyond just its initial error. It had become an unfolding saga, one that continues to surprise with every new discovery. For those who hold one, the thrill isn't just in its monetary worth, though the $40,000 to $110,000 valuation is undeniably staggering. The thrill is in being part of a living history, a story that began with a small mistake at the U.S. Mint and grew into a legend within the numismatic world. Even now, years after its first appearance, the 2008 New Mexico error quarter remains one of the most captivating stories of the state quarter program. It represents the intersection of history, culture, craftsmanship, and chance. Each coin is a silent witness to both the pride of New Mexico and the imperfections that make every human endeavor unique. For collectors, owning one is more than just an investment. It's holding in their hands a fragment of mystery, a piece of history that almost slipped through unnoticed, only to resurface as one of the great treasures of modern coinage. And that is why this small, unassuming piece of metal continues to inspire awe, curiosity, and a relentless pursuit of those who refuse to let its secrets remain hidden. In 2013, when the United States Mint released the Perry's Victory and International Peace Memorial Quarter as part of the beautiful state quarter program, the design was meant to do more than honor history. It symbolized a defining moment of unity and resilience, commemorating Commodore Oliver Hazard Perry's naval victory during the War of 1812. The memorial, standing tall in Ohio, was engraved into millions of coins that circulated across the nation. The artistry captured the towering column and its solemn presence, a reminder of the price of peace and the echoes of victory. Coins were struck in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, each carrying the weight of tradition. Yet among them, something unusual escaped unnoticed at first. A handful of these quarters bore an error so subtle and yet so striking that it would alter the trajectory of their value forever. It did not happen in a single dramatic moment. The minting process that year was driven by speed, precision, and sheer volume. Dies were tested, presses adjusted, but somewhere along the line, an imperfection found its way into production. The error was not immediately obvious to the casual spender buying coffee or dropping change into a parking meter. But to the trained eye of a collector, this anomaly would reveal itself as a rarity, a whisper of imperfection against the backdrop of flawless repetition. The journey of discovery began not in a museum or a marketplace, but in the quiet diligence of a collector sifting through rolls of coins purchased from a local bank. Day after day, he searched, eyes trained for minute deviations that others would dismiss as scratches or wear. When he first set the quarter aside, he wasn't even certain. Something about the lettering around the edge seemed slightly off. He turned it in the light, tilted it against another Perry's Victory quarter, and felt the unease grow. The relief of the memorial itself bore a faint distortion, almost as if the strike had doubled, creating a shadow of the image. He held it closer, pulse quickening, and realized he had stumbled upon something extraordinary. First, disbelief anchored him. Errors like this were not unheard of, but they were rare enough to feel almost mythical. He compared, cross-checked, and researched late into the night. Other collectors had mentioned similar anomalies online, whispers of double dies and misaligned strikes in the Perry's Victory series. but confirmation was scarce. The thought that his find might be one of the very few surviving examples sent waves of adrenaline through him. The coin, once an ordinary quarter worth 25 cents, had suddenly transformed in his mind into something greater. He placed it carefully in a protective holder, as if its very edges were delicate glass. There was fear, too. Fear that he might be mistaken, that the error was an illusion born of overexamination. Yet each test, each magnified inspection, only deepened the conviction. What he had found was real. The progression of its value did not reveal itself overnight. Initially, he shared the discovery cautiously, showing trusted peers who confirmed the error's legitimacy. In small numismatic circles, the whispers grew louder. Collectors who specialized in error coins began to take interest, their curiosity laced with envy. Prices suggested ranged widely. Some thought it might be worth hundreds, others dared to suggest thousands. For the man who had discovered it, those estimates only added to the suspense. As time passed, the narrative around the coin evolved. Auction houses started to record sales of similar Perry's Victory error quarters. What began as a cautious valuation of a few thousand quickly climbed into tens of thousands as demand surged. Each sale set a new benchmark, and each benchmark fed into the next wave of speculation. What if only a handful of these coins existed? What if his quarter was among the sharpest, cleanest examples? The once ordinary coin now sat at the center of a storm of anticipation. The physical characteristics of the error revealed the story of its creation. The most prominent among them was the doubling effect, a slight but unmistakable shadowing on the words Perry's Victory and across the outlines of the memorial itself. To the naked eye, it might pass as a trick of light, but under magnification, it told a clear tale of a die misalignment. In some cases, the strike appeared slightly off-center, creating a rim anomaly where the design bled dangerously close to the coin's edge. These are not mistakes made for novelty. They were accidents of machinery, born in the split-second misstep of a press striking thousands of coins. Collectors valued these traits not as flaws, but as signatures, fingerprints of history left behind by imperfection. Each mark, each deviation, separated the coin from its countless identical siblings. In a sea of millions, this one carried a unique story etched into metal. The irony was not lost. A coin meant to honor precision, order, and victory over chaos had itself emerged as a symbol of rarity through a moment of chaos in the minting process. Yet the twist that truly cemented its legacy came later, when research uncovered that these errors were disproportionately associated with coins struck at the Philadelphia Mint. While Denver and San Francisco outputs appeared largely clean, Philadelphia quarters revealed a small but significant pattern of anomalies. This discovery suggested that the error was not a one-off, but rather a small batch mishap tied to a specific die run. The collector who first uncovered his piece now realized he was part of a much larger story, one that involved systemic quirks in the minting process and the possibility that other hidden treasures still circulated unrecognized in pockets and drawers across the country. That revelation only fueled the frenzy. Stories spread of everyday people finding Perry's Victory era quarters in change from grocery stores or tucked in old coin jars, unknowingly holding pieces valued not at 25 cents, but at tens of thousands of dollars. The mystery of how many survived, combined with the dramatic increases in auction results, drove the market into speculative excitement. Prices soared, with some examples commanding figures that once seemed unimaginable. The coin that had begun its journey in a simple bankroll was now considered a crown jewel of modern era collecting. For its discoverer, the transformation was surreal. He often thought back to the moment he first noticed that faint distortion, the hesitation, the doubt. Now, he watched as similar coins fetched between $40,000 and $105,000 at major auctions, each sale adding a new layer to the coin's mythos. Even now, the Perry's Victory quarter error embodies suspense and unpredictability. It is a reminder that history does not always unfold as planned, that even in the realm of precision minting, chance and imperfection can give birth to treasures. Collectors continue to search, fueled by the possibility of finding one more piece, one more misstep immortalized in metal. The 2013 coin, meant to honor a battle fought centuries ago, has itself become a battlefield of desire, rarity, and value, where each discovery writes a new chapter in its extraordinary story.